setting up.
Guten Morgen, herzlichen Dank fürs Kommen. Wir öffnen hier eine Ausstellung im engen Kreis. Wir haben die Presseeinladung verschickt mit dem Gedanken, dass wenn wir das sehr breit verbreiten, können wir nicht einschätzen, wer hier alles kommt. Berlin ist voll mit Russen und auch sehr aggressiven Russen. Und daher haben wir das einfach gemacht für uns alle, für alle Beteiligten. Wir begrüßen ganz herzlich Herrn Lutsenko, der Innenminister der Ukraine AD und Generalstaatsanwalt der Ukraine AD, der extra aus Kiew gekommen ist, um diese Ausstellung zu eröffnen. Vielen lieben Dank. Wir begrüßen die Freundin der Familie Umерова. Die Linie sitzt im Gefängnis, im russischen Gefängnis, wie mehrere Menschen auf der Krim verhaftet ist. Und ganz herzlich begrüßen wir Frau Tröller, Auswärtige Amt der Bundesrepublik Deutschland, Referat für Ukraine-Moldau. Genau, Ukraine-Moldau. Ich wollte, dass sie das selbst sagt, damit ich nicht vielleicht doch etwas nicht richtig ausspreche oder etwas vergesse. Ukraine, Moldau und Schwarzmeer. Und damit übergebe ich das Wort.
Dear guests, my name is Christina. I'm here on behalf of Леніє Умерова, a Crimean Tatar held as a political prisoner by Russia. I'm a close family friend and have known Леніє for years. Unfortunately, her brother cannot be here today due to current restrictions for Ukrainian men to leave the country. Leniye is just 25 years old, and she has been held by Russia in custody for already 10 months. In December 2022, Leniye intended to visit her ill father in Crimea, who has cancer and whose state deteriorated at that time. To get there, she had to travel through Russia. She was detained by Russian authorities at the border without any explanation. Leniye was born and grew up in Crimea, and she refused to accept the Russian passport after its illegal occupation in 2014. This fact was the only reason for Leniye's detention in December 2022. She was the only passenger with a Ukrainian passport in a bus trying to cross the border to Russia. Currently, Russia conducts a stage trial for Leniye on fabricated grounds of espionage with a potential ultimate sentence of up to 20 years in prison. Since I received the news about Leniye's disappearance and detention, I can't but think about the fact that her life is being stolen. I keep thinking how my life was when I was 25, working, traveling, meeting my friends and going on dates. There were ups and downs, but overall I had a normal life. And on my 25th birthday, my friends threw me a nice party. But Leniye had to meet and spend her 25th birthday in prison cell, all alone. Leniye also used to have a normal life. She worked as a marketing specialist for a clothing company. She likes fashion and photography as well as reading. Just yesterday I watched videos from the wedding of her brother where she danced the traditional Crimean Tatar dance. And I remember how in June 2021 we planned a bachelorette party together for her sister-in-law and my very good friend. And all this normal life has been taken away from Leniye by Russia. Time is valuable. And every minute Leniye is kept in prison is stolen from her. She should not be living her best years like this, and as she hasn't done anything wrong. I think it is very symbolic that this exhibition is being shown at Chekpojnt Čарлí because Leniye was detained also right at the crossing point between Georgia and Russia. Chekpojnt Čарлí once used to be an access point between very distinct regimes. One providing freedom and democracy, and the other one terror and censorship. At this location you get a strong feeling for what a huge difference the border can make and why it is so important to defend it and your values. And right now many Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians are being persecuted by Russia just for their identity and desire to be free and live in a democracy. This is why the opening of today's exhibition is devoted to the stories of the political prisoners of Crimea. In this exhibition you will also see Leniye's personal belongings. Her ukulele, her equipment for taking photos for the company she works for, or the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Her family and I are very grateful that you have come today to see these tokens for her and other political prisoners' lives and read their stories. Please share their stories with others. They should not be forgotten.
Ja, vielen herzlichen Dank. Many thanks for your opening remarks. Dear Mr. Lutsenko, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, mein Name ist Natalie Tröller. Ich bin heute hier als Vertreterin des Auswärtigen Amtes, um ein paar Worte zu sagen. Ich freue mich sehr, dass ich die Gelegenheit habe, hier zu sein. Und ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie alle gekommen sind, um an dieser wichtigen Ausstellung teilzuhaben. Wie Sie gerade gehört haben, der ukrainische Widerstand geht weiter. Der ukrainische Widerstand gegen die illegale Aggression Russlands ist seit über 600 Tagen aktiv. Aber der ukrainische Widerstand ist schon viel länger aktiv. Sie sehen es hinter mir, Sie sehen die Bilder von Maidan. Sie erinnern sich an die Orangene Revolution. Sie erinnern sich an die vielen Dinge seit über 10 Jahren, die auf der Krim passieren. Sie erinnern sich an den Widerstand der Krim-Tataren, die sich weiterhin in britischer Gefangenschaft befinden und darum kämpfen, wahrgenommen zu werden. Aus diesem Grund ist eine Veranstaltung wie heute immens wichtig, um im Bewusstsein der Bevölkerung weiterhin wachzuhalten, dass die russische Aggression nicht erst seit Februar 2022 besteht, sondern seit vielen Jahren in der Ukraine eine Realität ist, eine Tatsache und etwas, womit sich insbesondere die Menschen auf der Krim und in Gefangenschaft auseinandersetzen müssen. Ich bin sehr froh und dankbar, dass ich hier sein kann und dass ich Ihnen weiterhin versichern kann, dass Deutschland weiterhin solidarisch an der Seite der Ukraine stehen wird, sowohl mit dem Winterschutzschirm als auch mit politischer Unterstützung, wie es Frau Annegret letzte Woche in Moldau bereits wieder betont hat. Deutschland steht weiterhin solidarisch Seite an Seite, Schulter an Schulter mit der Ukraine und ich freue mich, heute hier sein zu können und mit Ihnen sprechen zu können. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much. First of all, sorry for my English because last year I didn't have good practice especially in prison and then during the war. And that is why I will speak with my colleagues. I was invited here to speak about Crimea, and the first sentence that I remember, I really love to read history. As soon as I learned to read quickly, around 5th grade, I read about the Egypt Pharaoh, the first book, and the second one about Crimea Scythians. And from this point, maybe from 10 years old, I know that we have Carpathian Mountain in Ukraine, Dnieper River in Ukraine, and Black Sea and Crimea in Ukraine. It is our heritage. And then I went to Crimea myself and took my children. We made friends with Crimea Tatars, with Ukrainians, Russians, Greeks, and who lived there. During President Yushchenko 2005 term, I became the Minister of Interior after Orange Maidan, the first one, and I felt the full force of seemingly fraternal Russia, which stopped conflicts in Crimea, using Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol, and the fifth column of military retirees who occupied Tatars' homes after the Stalin-era deportation of 200,000 people in 1944. They relied on the voices of those Russians who occupied Tatar homes after the deportation of 100,000 Tatars at the time of Catherine the Great Queen, Russian Queen, and another 150,000 Tatars who were deported during Alexander, Russian Tsar. So, aggressive groups of so-called Russian Cossacks appeared on the peninsula in this period. They were financed by headquarters of Russian fleet. The mafia was actively operating on their side. By the way, now so-called Prime Minister of Crimea is a leader of mafia group in Crimea, which I, Minister of Interior, knows very much. President Yushchenko understood the threat and demanded to extend the lease for Sevastopol and withdraw Russian troops from Ukraine and Crimea. It was then that Ukraine applied for NATO membership for the first time, 2008. And as for me, personally, it was the greatest mistake of West that together we lose this chance to stop the next war. Next came the pro-Russian President Yanukovych, who attempted to annex Ukraine to the new incarnation of the Russian Empire. In response, Ukrainians staged a new revolution, new Maidan, defending Ukrainian sovereignty and course toward returning to Europe, from which Russian Tsars stole us Ukrainians 350 years ago. The Maidan in the 21st century reaffirmed the declaration of the American and French Revolution in this century. Because of this, 100 peaceful demonstrators were killed in the center of Kyiv, and another 3,000 were wounded. But millions of Ukrainians across the country stood their ground. Ukraine is Europe. It was our slogan. And this is a slogan of this revolution and this war. Yanukovych fled to Russia, and Putin sent troops to Crimea and later to Donbass. This war continues to this day. It's not just a war on the front lines, where I spent last 14 months in trenches near Mykolaiv, near Bakhmut, near Kyiv, 14 months of my life. But it's also a war in people's mind. Putin, the war criminal, and his propaganda machine are trying to weaken international support for Ukraine. And his weapon is lie. sorry for long, maybe, story, but as for me it is very important to know for every journalist here in the West. The first lie that Putin sent troops to protect Russian-speaking population in Crimea from Ukrainian nationalists. Just look at the official medal Putin awarded for return of Crimea. And you can see the truth. This so-called return of Crimea began when they were still killing us on the Maidan, 21st of February. So during the finish of revolution, where they killed young peaceful demonstrators, Putin sent these troops. The second lie, as stated by Lavrov recently, is that Russia tolerated Ukraine's borders as long as it was non-aligned, Ukraine non-aligned. Facts, the occupation of Crimea and part of Donbass happened while Ukraine was non-aligned state. Only in December 2014, we changed this status, which made us a vulnerable target. The third lie is the claim by Russians and useful idiots like Elon Musk, by the way, that Russia has a right to territory where Russian is spoken. In my trenches, soldiers spoke Ukrainian, Russian, Tatar, and even Hebrew. But in every language, we understood that Russia was and still is the enemy. Putin was and still is a bloody maniac, and we had to win. Do you know how my Tatar friend explained it? There were the days near Bakhmut, it is the most hot point of last year in Donbass region, war, when heavy rains flooded the trenches near Bakhmut. Our machine gunners fended off the Wagner mercenaries while standing waist deep in the mud. Absolutely mud and rain and hundreds and thousands so-called MOBICs, Wagner groups. But then a 15-degree frost struck next day, and they continued to fire frozen in the ice. How do you endure this? I asked Eldar, my Tatar comrade on arms. Because I have nowhere to retreat. My only home is there, in Crimea. So the fourth lie is about the referendum in Crimea. Let me be conscious. We remember such referendum on 1938 in Austria with anschluss. The single real referendum in Crimea was in 1991 when the majority of Crimean Sevastopol voted for Ukrainian independence. That's the point. And the fifth, maybe last, a favorite of all tyrants, dictators and leaders like Putin is the claim of historical rights to the land of former empires. If we go by this logic, then Russia, which forcibly annexed Crimea for 200 years, clearly loses not only to the history of Crimean Khanate, but also to Italian Genoese Republic. So maybe Crimea is not Russia, but Italy, on this stupid logic. This logic leads nowhere, because by Putin's reasoning, Moscow could become Mongolian, Vladivostok Chinese, and Novgorod Swedish. The fact that Crimea was joined to Russia by a 100% German queen make this discussion even more amusing. Maybe Russia is not Russia. So, unfortunately, the situation in Ukraine is not amusing. Hundreds of our young men and women, the elderly and children, die every day. Hundreds. 5, 6, even 10 hundreds per day. The enemy was defeated near Kyiv, then near Kharkiv, then near Kherson in the south of Ukraine. Right now, first battles are taking place to liberate the Azov Sea region and gain access to Crimea. Half of this year we are in very hot battle for the left bank of Dnieper and the bridge to Crimea. Our victories are not just the result of the heroism of Ukrainians, but also the result of the solidarity of Western allies, including Germany. And thank you very much for understanding that it is not a Russian war with Ukraine. Tragedy in Israel makes absolutely clear that it is Russia's and its totalitarian allies' war against the principles of the United Nations and international law. Putin has challenged the entire democratic community, entire free world. He will not stop on his own, just as he didn't stop in Crimea. After 2014, he didn't stop. He started again. And I'm absolutely sure that if he, Putin I mean, had been able to take Kyiv in 3 days, as he planned in February last year, after 4 or 5 years, Ukrainian youth would be sitting in Russian uniforms in trenches near Vilnius and Warsaw. That was his plan of the Third World War. That's why we appreciate and value your support, and Deutsch support also. Each of us is playing our part in a historical process explaining the space of freedom. Because in the 60s, the border of freedom was here, in Berlin, in this Chekpойnt Чарлі. In 80s, the border of freedom was in Warsaw. In 90s, in Kyiv. And now, our task is to push the boundaries of freedom to reach Crimea. And then, someday, the stones on the Red Square will fly no worse than they fly in Kyiv Maidan. Because freedom is not something given to you, it's something you can't live without. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just one remark. I don't know English, Deutsch. Also, das muss gesagt werden. Die Ausstellung hat uns geholfen, zustande zu bringen. Haben 2 Schwestern aus der Ukraine geholfen. Aber die haben Familie auf der Krim. Und insofern an der Stelle, weil sie hier alles geholfen haben, steigen sie ins Auto und fahren sie wieder weg. Also ich habe sie so gebeten, bleiben Sie bei der Eröffnung. Wie immer, nein, wir können nicht, wir können unsere Familie nicht möglicherweise schaden. Also, und das ist sehr gefährlich, wir können nicht. Und ich bin persönlich und wir sind sehr, sehr dankbar, diese beiden jungen Frauen, die uns natürlich wahnsinnig geholfen haben. Denn als erste Ausstellung haben wir Stus Alagoska, Widerstand in den 70ern, 1995 ins Museum gebracht. Und dann mit Maidan als erste, was ich gemacht habe, was wir hier bekommen haben, das ist Maidan. Dann mit dem Beginn des Krieges in Ostukraine gleich die Ausstellung über die Ostukraine, mit dem Überfall der Russen auf die Ostukraine. Und dann mit dem Überfall der Russen 2022, letztes Jahr als erste war natürlich sofort, die Welt muss es sehen. Und wir bitten Sie, das genau sich anzuschauen, auch die Kassettenbombe, die dort liegt, ein Teil, originale Teil aus der Kassettenbombe. Und vor allen Dingen, hier sind die Bücher. Und die Bücher sind gratis, jeder kann sich ein Buch einnehmen. Und jetzt bitten wir Sie ganz herzlich, die Ausstellung sich anzuschauen. Da sind inzwischen 4 Räume, diese, dann 2., 3., 4., also 4 große Räume und den 4. Raum, Sie werden sehen, die politischen Gefangenen und die Karte mit den Orten, wo die ukrainischen Kinder, die entführt worden sind, behalten werden durch die Russen auf der Krim, überwiegend auf der Krim. Und jetzt herzlich willkommen und bitte schauen Sie sich die Ausstellung an und natürlich alle stehen für die Fragen zur Verfügung. Und die Bücher sind dort auf dem Tisch. Vielen lieben Dank.
support Ukraine, help Ukraine, love Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. And this is just the work of our museum. The museum is now about more than 60 years old. It was opened 1962, just after the wall was built. Not after the wall was down, but just after the wall was built, all at once. My late husband, Dr. Natalie Tröller, did establish the museum, and we try to continue it as he would make it. We hope so. Thank you.
Putin tried to annex all Ukraine. During our hard period with to say once again, Ukraine is Europe and the Crimea is Ukraine. Because you see, it will be a very important story which I tell today. My comrade in arms, Eldar, who is Crimea Tatar, in my visit here. So my chapel is very good to understand.